Welcome to another Ziva Math video. In this video, we will be graphing proportional relationships from a given equation. We will only be working on proportional relationships in this video, so all of the equations we will graph will be in the form y equals kx, where k is the constant of proportionality. When you have an equation in this form, k is also your slope. We will be creating tables with ordered pairs to graph our equations, and we'll use slope to graph equations in a later video. A helpful tip when graphing equations is to pay attention to whether you have a positive or negative coefficient, in this case, a positive or negative constant of proportionality, k, or the positive negative slope. If your constant of proportionality is positive, as it is on the graph y equals 2x, then as you move from left to right on your graph, the graph is going up. If your constant proportionality is negative, as it is on the graph y equals negative 2x, then as you move left to right, your graph is going down. Now let's take a look at our examples. In this example, we're going to graph the equation y equals 10x. And in order to graph this equation, we need some ordered pairs, so we need some x and y values. And we're going to get those by using the equation. So first, we're going to start where x is 0, and so we need to find the y value when x is 0. And to find the y value, we're going to go to our equation, y equals 10x, and we're going to take that x value of 0 and substitute it for x. So instead of having y equals 10x, we're going to have y equals 10 times 0. And 10 times 0 is 0. So the y value when x is 0 is 0. And I always recommend using x values that are easy to work with. 0 is a number that's very easy to work with. 1 is going to be a number that's very easy to work with in this multiplication situation, because 10 times 1, because when we substitute 1 for x to find our y value and x is 1, 10 times 1 is 10. So when x is 1, y is 10. And then maybe the next value we use is when x equals 2. Well, again, we're going to take the 2 and plug it in for x. So we get 10 times 2 equals 20. So y is 20 when x is 2. And you also may want to use some negative values for x as well. So using negative 1, because multiplying by 1 is very simple. So we're going to plug in negative 1 for x to find y. So we have 10 times negative 1, and 10 times negative 1 is negative 10. So when x is negative 1, y is negative 10. And then let's try x is negative 2. And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the negative 2, put it in place of x, and 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 20. And once I have these values in my table, these values become my ordered pairs. So when x is 0, y is 0, so I'll have the ordered pairs 0, 0, 110, 220, and so on. And so from my table, I have the points that I'm going to put in my graph. So I'm going to start with 0, 0, then I'll plot the point 110, then I have 220, and then negative 1, negative 10, and negative 2, negative 20, and then I can draw in my line. So now I've graphed my equation, y equals 10x. In this example, we're graphing the equation y equals negative 5x. And in order to do that, we need some ordered pairs to make our graph with. And we're going to get those ordered pairs from the equation. And we need to pick some x values to use. I'm going to use 0 because if I'm multiplying by 0, that's a very easy calculation to do. So I need the y value when x is 0. So I'm going to my equation, y equals negative 5x. And in place of x, I'm going to put the 0. So in order to solve for y, we have negative 5 times 0, and negative 5 times 0 is 0. So when x is 0, y is 0. And then I'm going to choose when x is 1, another number, an x value that's very easy for me to work with given my equation. So to solve for y, I'm going to put 1 in place of x in my equation. So now I have negative 5 times 1 equals y, and negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. So when x is 1, y equals negative 5. And then again, I would suggest choosing something that has a negative value for your next x value. And so negative 1, again, is an easy number to work with. So that's the number I'm going to choose next. So negative 1, and to find our y value when x is negative 1, we're plugging negative 1 in for x in the equation, and we get negative 5 times negative 1, which is positive 5. Now that I have my table filled in, the values in my table become my ordered pairs. So 0, 0, 1, negative 5, and negative 1, 5. And that's what I'm going to be graphing. So I'm graphing the point 0, 0, 1, negative 5, and negative 1, 5. And after graphing my points, I can add my line in. Now we can use any value we want to for these x values when we are finding our ordered pairs. I use 0, 1, and negative 1 because those are simple numbers to work with. And you can do more than 3, but really you only need to plot 2 or 3 points in order to draw an accurate line. In this example, we're going to graph the equation y equals 2x, and I want to use this example to address one of the misperceptions a lot of students have when working with proportional relationships. A lot of times, you want to draw your line in going from one corner of a grid line up to the next corner and so on, because a lot of times your examples are set up that this is where your ordered pairs are. But you need to be careful and actually work the problem out because you're not always going to draw a nice diagonal line through those grid lines. So let's look at what happens in the example that we have here with the way they've laid our graph out. So we're going to need some ordered pairs. I'm going to start by filling in my table where x is 0. And to find the y value when x is 0, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. And so 2 times 0 is 0. So my y value when x is 0 is 0. Then I'm going to use the x value 1, and I'm going to plug in 1 for x to find my y, and 2 times 1 is 2. So my y value in x is 1 is 2. And if I use negative 1, because it's nice to also use a negative, I'm going to plug that x value of negative 1 in for x to find my y value, and 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Now that I have my x and y values in my table, these are my ordered pairs and the points that I'm going to be putting in my graph. So the first point I have is 0, 0. So I'm going to plot the point 0, 0. Then I'll have 1, 2. And then I have negative 1, negative 2. And then as I draw my line in here, notice I'm not going box by box. Notice that I am drawing my line in through where the points are. So don't just assume when you're working with proportional relationships that you're going to make a nice diagonal line through those grid lines, but actually take the time to plot the points that you have. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Ziva Math for more videos.